You ever have one of those moments, a simple thought that just pops into your head, and then suddenly it starts to unravel everything you think you know, not just about history, but about reality itself, and even how ideas spread? Well, today, we're going to follow one of those thoughts right down the rabbit hole.
So, it all started with this. Just a simple, almost silly aha moment. I think we've all been there, right? Your brain finally clicks on something that's been hiding in plain sight your entire life. Just driving from Lewiston, Idaho, across the river into Clarkston, Washington, and boom! The realization that the towns are literally right there, named for the explorers. And that, right there, is the real question, isn't it? Because this isn't just a fun piece of trivia. It's about how that one tiny, almost comical idea can be like a loose thread on a sweater. You give it a little pull, and suddenly the whole thing starts to come apart. The entire tapestry of what you thought was true.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. That simple, almost funny little moment of discovery. This is the silly revelation that kicks this whole thing off.
You gotta picture this. You're just driving along, maybe listening to music, not thinking about much. And then the street signs kind of just speak to you. Lewiston, Clarkston. The two towns are just sitting there right across the river from each other, like they've been winking at you your whole life, just waiting for you to finally get the joke. But this is where the story takes a hard left turn. Because that little joke, it didn't just stay a joke. It became this giant question mark that started attaching itself to, well, everything. And that's how we get from a simple observation to some pretty profound skepticism. And that's the first domino to fall. I mean, think about it. If that connection was so obvious, but you missed it for so long, what else are you missing? It's not a huge leap to go from, Lewis and Clark, to, wait a second, did Lewis and Clark even happen? How do we actually know that? Or is it just a story we've all been told?
And this is pretty much the final destination for that train of thought. It's the moment you realize that so much of what we call knowledge is really just a story, a narrative that's been handed down. You weren't there, I wasn't there, we didn't see it. It all comes down to trust. Trust in teachers, in historians, in the books they write.
So if we're going to question it, let's really do it. Let's actually put the historical record on trial. Let's ask the most basic question there is. Where's the actual physical proof?
Yeah, this is the challenge, right? If the story's real, there has to be something tangible. I don't want summaries or secondhand accounts. Show me the receipts. What can we actually touch? What can we verify for ourselves?
Okay, so if we demand proof, what does the official story have to offer? Well, it turns out there are a few main categories of evidence. You've got the original, handwritten journals from the expedition. You've got actual plant samples they collected. There are artifacts and maps. And, maybe coolest of all, archaeological sites that have been verified.
And what's wild is how specific this stuff gets. We're talking about the actual diaries sitting in a building in Philadelphia right now. We're talking about hundreds of plant specimens that you can compare to the written descriptions in those diaries. But the craziest one? Archaeologists found traces of mercury at a campsite in Montana, which perfectly lines up with the mercury-laced laxatives they were known to carry. I mean, come on, that's a pretty specific physical footprint to leave behind.
But here's the twist. Even with all that, how do you really know? Even if you're looking at the journal, how do you know the ink and paper are real? You have to trust the carbon dating. You have to trust the experts. You have to trust that all these different institutions aren't part of some massive conspiracy. At the end of the day, no piece of evidence gives you 100% certainty. It just makes the story more and more probable.
So, let's switch gears. Let's put on our defender of history hat for a minute and make the strongest possible case for why we should believe the official story. Let's play devil's advocate. So the case for believing isn't just one thing. It's this whole web of interlocking pieces. You don't just have one journal, you have several from different people on the trip, all basically telling the same story. You have those plants that match the descriptions. You have oral histories from Native American tribes that line up with the expedition's path. And honestly, maybe the most convincing part, the journals are a mess. They're full of spelling mistakes and weird details. They feel human, you know? They don't feel like a clean, perfect forgery.
And this question right here is the pivot. This is where the whole thing turns. After all that back and forth, the proof and the skepticism, you have to ask yourself, so what? Who cares? How does believing or not believing in a 200-year-old story actually affect my life, right here, right now?
Because that question brings us to our final and honestly most important idea. We're about to see that the real journey was never about Lewis and Clark.
It was never about a river. The real journey was about the nature of thought itself.
The answer to "so what?" is this. The point was never about getting the right answer about history. The point was the experience of having the question in the first place. The real value is in the act of thinking, of questioning, and then, and this is key, of sharing that process with other people. It's not about reading a map of the past. It's about creating a new map of thought together.
And that brings us to this idea, fractalized thought ripples. Think about it. When you share an idea, it's not like passing a baton. It's like dropping a pebble in a pond. It ripples out, and every single person who hears it becomes a new center for a new ripple, amplifying it, sending it out in brand new directions, creating this beautiful, complex, ever-expanding pattern. So you can see this in two totally different ways. On one side, you have the historical fact. It's static. It's frozen in the past. It's all about what happened then. But on the other side, you have the thought ripple. It's alive. It's evolving right now in our shared minds. It's not about then, it's about what's happening now as we all think about this together.
And this is the real takeaway. That little aha moment by the river didn't just stay with one person. Once it was shared, it was amplified. And by you listening to this, by you thinking about it, you're an amplifier too. Right now, you are part of this fractal pattern, part of this living, growing network of awareness.
Which kind of leaves us with this one last, pretty mind-blowing idea. If every thought we share is just a ripple in some giant collective consciousness, then maybe that's what we are. Every one of us is just a unique little viewpoint for the universe to experience itself. And that silly little thought you had yesterday, maybe that was just the universe trying to learn something new about itself through you.